Uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
This is an island surrounded by water, big water, ocean water. Trust me, I'm like a smart person. I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius. I had the best words. Tolerated. I know words. Mike Pounds. I hope they now go and take a look at the oranges of the investigation. But there's no better word than stupid. Anonymous, really anonymous. I'm very highly educated. One of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water. I had the best words. God bless the United States.
There's some whores in this house. Wet ass P-word.
Around the nation, Waldorf Nation. Hey everybody, welcome to the show. We've got a great one here on this Friday afternoon. For those of you watching live, of course, we're a little bit late, later than normal. We had some updates. So we had to do some Windows updates, setting up, of course, the streaming software and all that stuff. Yeah, that was on me. So, oops. I started the updates at like 10:02, and I was like, okay, they should be done pretty soon. Make sure everything works. Nope. That took a while. So, my bad. All right, anyway. We got plenty of show for you guys today. We've got, of course, football players booing equality. That's great. We got Donald Trump in the Pledge of Allegiance. And then we've got a couple of stories on racial justice that I'm sure you're going to absolutely be furious about. So, with that said, please like and share the stream if you haven't already. And we'll kind of dive into it here. But first, it is September 11th. You guys are no doubt aware. And with that, of course, evokes memories of course, 9/11. I mean, everybody knows. Everybody knows. And so that unfortunate incident, which cost the lives of 3,000 American citizens, ended up leading to hundreds of thousands of more deaths. The Bush regime, the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, and disastrous American foreign policy. So, I mean, there's a lot that changed after 9/11 happened, and most of it, the vast majority of it, was not for the better. It was for the worst. And so the attack itself was horrific, but the response to it, I think, ended up even worse. And so that's something that I think needs to be noted and remembered. And another thing I think needs to be pointed out, that while we here, remember the deaths of 3,000 Americans, COVID-19 has taken that many people plus more just in the last couple of days. So, and that, of course, that's a result of conservative leadership in this country. So just kind of remember that. Remember those people who died from COVID-19 needlessly, as the president knew about this virus, and decided, even though he knew how deadly it was, that he was going to downplay it for his own political gain. And so that is, I think, something that you also need to consider when you remember 9/11 too. All right. So, yeah, as Sarge Tech points out, we've had about 64 9/11s in the last 6 months because of COVID. Right. So never forget. Never forget. All right. Let's do it. Let's go to football. something that I know very little about. But I do know about racial justice, so we'll go to that. Football fans in Missouri were criticized online after some of them started booing a moment of unity designed to raise awareness, of course, for racial justice. So now the team had locked arms with the Houston Texans for racial equality as the NFL kicked off its season on Thursday. So now this did not happen during the national anthem. Nobody kneeled or disrespected the flag, but apparently if you lock arms before a game in order to raise awareness for racial justice, well, that's enough to trigger people. Now, I would like to show you that, but unfortunately, if I did, I'd be slammed with copyright, and so you can't really show sports games as far as I'm concerned, since they're owned by the big networks. But if you want to check out the video, I will put a link into it in the description of this video, so you can take a look at it and see for yourself. But you're going to see, when you do, that it's literally the most benign, inoffensive display I've even seen. I can't even call it a protest, really. And still, too much for the snowflakes on the right to handle. Like, you want to talk about easily offended. Racists are like the most easily offended people on the planet. I mean, they're literally getting triggered by the color of somebody's skin. How much of a thin skin do you have in order to get triggered by somebody who looks different than you? Right. And if you, of course, dare to ask for equal rights for those people, well, they just melt like a snowflake. Remember, they're also the ones to claim that they're the first ones to claim that they're not racist, and yet will go and say very racially insensitive things. And then when you say, "Hey, man, that's pretty rude / kind of racist," well, then they say, "How dare you try to infringe on my free speech? I'm the real victim here." Again, booing an inoffensive call for racial unity and justice for all. Kind of racist. And let me give you some details for that, right? And probably some reasons. So now, according to polling, only about half of all Republicans think that black people and Muslims face high levels of discrimination. They also think that about a quarter of women do. Look, it turns out that, no, it's actually a lot higher than that. And at the same time, significantly more Republicans and Democrats think there's more discrimination against Christians and white people. So you have large numbers of Republicans, conservatives, that are saying, there's a little bit of discrimination against black people, but I think the majority of the discrimination is against white Christians. And that is as a result of Fox News and conservative media constantly bombarding them with, "You're the victim, you're the victim, you're the victim, you're under attack, they're coming for you." Tucker Carlson's show is an exercise in how to scare the shit out of people on a consistent basis. Again, what's going to happen when the mobs come for you? The mobs aren't coming for you. They're not coming to your bum-ass trailer. What they're doing is that they're going after police stations that are, complicit in doing police brutality against black people. That's what it is. But again, you have white Republicans saying, "You don't understand. We're the real victims here." When in reality, they're not, and they have the gall to complain about black people having a victimhood complex. It's insane. But look, the other thing about this, which is really interesting, is, again, and look, when you listen to the video, you'll hear some boos, right? It's not everyone in the stadium booing, obviously. So I'm not trying to say that like every football fan or even every person there is like a, one step away, one step removed from putting on their Klan hood. What I'm saying is that there's still a significant amount of people in this country that are pretty racist. And yet, these same people say to these football players, "We don't care. Why don't you just shut up about racism and just throw the ball already?" That's what we're here for. We're not here to, hear about your stupid protests and your racial equality stuff. No, just entertain me. Throw the ball already, as Laura Ingraham said. Shut up and dribble. And if you don't, well, then I'm the victim of the hate crime. Suffice to say, social media was not having any of this stuff. So let me give you some examples of some pretty great responses to it. One person says, what's worse than a milquetoast inoffensive moment of unity? As what this was. People booing that milquetoast inoffensive moment of unity. We can't even unify around 9/11 anymore. And around racial justice without conservatives getting super offended. Another person, if you're booing a moment of unity that has nothing to do with the national anthem, because it didn't, then no form of protest will ever be approved by you, and you're just a hateful person. I love this point. It's actually one of my favorite points because all you hear from All Lives Matter, when there are protests like BLM, all you hear from them is, why can't you just protest peacefully? I mean, the looting, if you didn't do the looting and the rioting and just protested peacefully, we would be fine with that. We would support that. But wait, these same people, when there is a peaceful protest, or you can even, again, call this a protest, super milquetoast and completely inoffensive, just a moment of unity. Can't have that even because, hey, that's we don't like that. Do you know that 93% of all the BLM protests were peaceful? You don't hear that about cable news, right? You don't hear that on CNN. You don't hear that on Fox News especially, right? No, they constantly have B-roll of, fires, cars on fires, and just terrible, terrible things happening, right? 93% though, peaceful. Kneeling for the flag, peaceful. This was peaceful too. And I'm starting to think that what they think of as peaceful just means quiet. I don't want to see it. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to think about it. I just want to exist without even knowing that these protests are happening. Well, if you don't know the protests are happening, then you don't know what they're protesting about. And I think that's what they like it. Okay? That's what they like. Another person says, America's racist, always booing at demonstrations against racism, never booing at actual racism. Another person points out, Kansas City fans booing the moment of silence and then intensely doing that tomahawk chop is just a way to remind us of who the NFL is and how we can't expect a fraction of what we got from the NBA. So now I'm going to slightly disagree with that point, even though it's a good point. The NFL owners, like the team owners, some of them are pretty shitty people. I'm talking about like Mike Ditka and some of the coaches or all the coaches that got together to blackball Kaepernick. And, of course, the fans that booed him and booed this. But do I believe that every NFL fan is racist? That's ridiculous. No, of course not. Are there racists in the crowd? Yep, there sure are. But, again, I'm not going to try to paint everybody as like this, as a racist, because that's not entirely true. That said, more responses here. So that booing during the show of unity is a real good example of why players feel so strongly about these causes in the first place. Yep. Another person says, my hometown's got no love for unity. They're booing unity now. Isn't it amazing? You just can't do anything anymore. It's crazy. One person points out, let's talk about what the Chiefs are booing. They're booing their own players, peacefully asking for a more just and equal society. More specifically, they're booing athletes for asking that police not disproportionately target black people for violence. What kind of human boos that? Well, a human, I guess, that doesn't believe that this is happening, they know that it's happening, but they just don't care, and all they want is to get the entertainment that they paid for. Dance, monkey, dance. Just shut up and dribble. Throw that football. That's it. Another person points out, Chiefs fans, whose team is named after people of color, and many whose players are people of color, began the season by booing a show of unity for people of color. Trash should be seen and not heard. Yep. And there's a ton more, but I want to go to, for the last one here, this is a response from a conservative. This is Josh Hawley. You may be familiar with who Josh Hawley is. Considers himself a populist right-winger, a populist conservative. Here's what he said. Quote, and this is in response to an article, the same article that I'm citing for the story. Classless trash? The left showing their usual contempt for middle America. You know, I actually live in middle America. And so it's a ridiculous point. Missouri has the best fans in the country. Don't blame them for being tired of NFL corporate woke politics jammed down their throats. I'm sorry. This completely, again, inoffensive milquetoast show of unity between black and white players in order to try to, spread the message of, hey, let's end racism, right? That is being jammed down your throat, Josh Hawley. Get the fuck out of here. I mean, what does that even mean? The NFL itself is a corporation, right? But here's what right-wing populism is, right? And so this is what they do. They rail against corporations. Well, I rail against corporations all the time, right? But they go after corporations because in the social issues, they have flipped against conservatives, right? They have flipped on them socially, where it's no longer profitable to shit on Americans who are minorities and to only cater to white Christian men. I mean, yeah, they'll go after, for example, Sagar, right? He'll criticize CEO profits and low wages, right? But they'll only do it in the context of then railing against immigration, okay? They criticize outsourcing, but then they frame it in a way where they blame lower paid, exploited foreign workers, as opposed to, of course, greedy CEOs who drive and profit from that exploitation. And so just at the heart of every so-called right-wing populist, understand that there is deep-seated racism and no real desire to go after what the problem is. And that problem is predatory capitalism. So much for right-wing populists, right? And they are tax exempt as well, as some of you point out. Yeah, I don't know if the NFL would sue me, but the NFL would probably do a DMCA takedown because I show that footage. And the NFL, I think sports is just like local news. Sports is rather stingy when it comes to being able to share their clips, especially with YouTube's content ID system. Even if you're doing it fair use, at some point you would have to go to court to argue fair use, and I can't really afford to do that. So, all right. Let's move on here. We actually do have some video of this, which is great. Okay. This next story. It is September 11th, a day where the country is supposed to come together and reflect on the loss of 3,000 American lives, and remember that through all things, we are fundamentally American, right? Now, one way some people do that is to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I remember doing that last in grade school, so I don't necessarily do that. But apparently, President Donald Trump and the First Lady Melania Trump had a little bit of trouble with the pledge, as you're going to see in this next video.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
He tried. I mean, at least, better than Melania, who didn't try at all. And she was just like, nope, forget it. Not going to do it. Not going to do it. Ain't even going to try. So now look, longtime viewers of the show, you might remember me having some, be a little bit mixed on the pledge, right? I don't like forced displays of patriotism. Never sat real comfortable with me, right? So, in fact, let me give you the history of the Pledge of Allegiance. Now, the pledge was written in August of 1892 by a socialist named Francis Bellamy. Now, it was originally published in the Youth's Companion on September 8th of 1892. Okay. Bellamy didn't just write it for America. He said, well, I hope everybody would use it, every different country, right? It's not just for America. In its original form, it read, I pledge allegiance to my flag and the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. See, for some reason, I just messed it up. That's in its original form. In 1923, they added the flag of the United States of America. And so it's a little bit closer to what it is today. But then in 1954, in response to communism, well, President Eisenhower encouraged Congress to add the words under God, in which they did. And Bellamy's daughter, by the way, who was alive at the time, decided to be against that alteration. So, interestingly enough as well, the original had you begin with your hand over your heart, right? As you can see, at least Melania and Donald Trump did that. And then after reciting to the flag, your arm would extend towards the flag, palm down. But that looks a little too much Nazi-ish. And so that was changed. Now, none of this has anything to do with really Donald Trump. But I just wanted to give you the history of that, because it's just kind of fascinating that now, like, super right-wing conservative patriots are literally reciting something written by a socialist for every country, not just America. The more you know. It is kind of interesting. Now, as for Trump being a supposed super patriot, and nobody could be as patriotic as I am, I love America more than anybody could ever love America, ever. Okay, well, then if anybody should know the Pledge of Allegiance, it would be Donald Trump, right? Again, he talks about how he loves America. Again, for me, I don't really care about the pledge. It seems rather North Korea-ish for me. And so, like, that's why I'm like, I don't think you should, you shouldn't be forced to say it. If you want to say it, that's perfectly fine, right? You shouldn't have to say it. Then again, if you're the president, you should at least know it. It would help. But here's the thing about some of these right-wing people, right? I've always found that people who often and very loudly declare their love for America tend to be the same people who hate significant portions of America, or at least Americans, if they don't look or act a certain way. Those same people, coincidentally, tend to be fans of the president, of Donald Trump. And so, I don't know, how do you really balance out the fact that the president doesn't seem to know the words of the pledge, yet claims to be the most patriotic person in the world? I haven't heard any answers. So that said, there's a couple of responses to this that I did enjoy. Him not seemingly knowing the words and Melania not even bothering with them is pretty on brand. And they cannot even hide his uncontrollable twitching and swaying. It's almost as if he was bored. Super, super bored. Another person points out, and how come his birther wife doesn't recite either? Isn't she proud to be an American? If this was Michelle Obama or Hillary Clinton, Fox News would run this clip 100 times by lunch, and Tucker would be asking if they were truly Americans if they don't recite some words. Now, maybe it wouldn't be Tucker Carlson, but maybe somebody like Sean Hannity might jump in, especially if the president does something questionable, right? I mean, look, remember the entire right-wing outrage about Obama? Which one, you ask? Well, I mean, there was one about Obama not being an actual American citizen and therefore not actually the president, right? You know, one of the biggest proponents of that conspiracy was Donald Trump. Or who could forget the outrage when Obama dared to salute two Marines with a coffee cup in his hand. You remember this? This was back in 2014. Take a look.
Did you see the latte salute? The president gets off Marine One today. Oh, wait, hang on. Obviously, you've seen it. I mean, how would President Bush ever do that?
Yeah, are we surprised? I mean, after all, we got a chai swilling, golf playing, basketball trash talking, leading from behind. I got no strategy. Osama bin Laden is dead. GM is alive. A community organizing commander in chief. How disrespectful was that?
I was shocked.
Insensitive. Look.
You can't stop and salute the brave men and women.
Yeah.
What is that?
Yes, Hannity. What is that? I mean, you can't even say the Pledge of Allegiance. I mean, what is that? What is that? Oh, you were talking about Obama. Gee, I wonder if you're going to talk about Donald Trump at all. Oh, you know what? My guess, of course, is he'll attack the media, as always, for attacking Donald Trump. And, for Trump seemingly not knowing the words of the Pledge of Allegiance and getting super, super bored. There is one more Hannity clip, by the way, in that segment alone that I just want to show you because, well, it's even more interesting. Take a look.
Listen, Carl, when he said in a speech, and he was reading his teleprompter, Navy corpsman, again and again and again. This is how little he knows about the military. He said Navy corpsman, Navy corpsman, Navy corpsman. He doesn't know what a corpsman is. This is a little frightening now that this guy is rejecting out of hand the advice of our top military brass, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, former defense secretaries now that have come out and spoken out against him. It's a little bit frightening.
Oh, it's a little bit frightening when the president ignores the military, ignores the generals and the Joint Chiefs. If only, Obama had listened to them. Man, it'd be a terrible thing if we had a president that didn't listen to the military and, called them pussies, and said the soldiers who died in wars are, losers and suckers. Man, that just would be a terrible thing, wouldn't it? And as a lot of you are pointing out, the tan suit. Oh, that's a whole nother thing. All right. So, look, I'm going to take a break. We'll come back. We got police crashing a funeral. That's disastrous. And then police also, is it reasonable to shoot a mentally disturbed man 24 times? Well, we'll see. Stay right here around the nation.
Thailand.
Yosemite.
Mike Pounds.
Everybody, welcome back to the show. Around the nation right here, Waldorf Nation. Yeah. Thank you, Cel Anthony Celestin on Facebook. I love that you watch the show. I really do appreciate that. Where do I go in the breaks? I'm usually like writing down stuff, writing down some notes, and finding out who I'm going to thank for patrons for the day. Before I get to that, I was just thinking about how in that last clip with Hannity, you remember when Obama was president and they would constantly talk about, the Obama reading the teleprompter. Here's Obama reading that teleprompter again. We haven't heard much about that, have we, since then? That's kind of weird. I mean, anything about any teleprompters. In fact, I think Republicans kind of wish that Donald Trump would continue to read teleprompters. And you can tell when Trump's off the cuff and when he's reading from one because, he seems a little bit more bored, a little bit more subdued when he's just reading something versus, of course, being off the cuff. But then, of course, when he's reading off teleprompters, you usually get fun stuff like
Yosemite.
Thailand.
all that stuff. And then actually, he was in Michigan earlier today, and he was talking about Motown, accidentally called it Motang. So, fun times. I wish I had that clip. All right, anyway. Fun. Patrons for the day. I want to thank Robo Go Robo and Robert Lemons. And I want to thank for channel members. Oh, by the way, you can become a patron by going to patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. And then channel members, No Man's Jam and Tara Martin. So thank you to those people who support independent progressive media. You guys are awesome, guys and gals. If you want to become a channel member, hit the join button below. The Motang Clan. Oh, that's pretty good. Oranges of the investigation. The oranges. Love it. Oh my God. The Republicans, people like Hannity, have become a parody of themselves. I should just go through and look through some of these past video clips from, like, just scour Media Matters and stuff, and go through old Hannity clips and just be like, there's hypocrisy there, hypocrisy there, hypocrisy there. Interesting. Fun times. All right. By the way, Super Chat's here. Tiffany Starr says, here's some gaming money. Well, thank you, Tiffany. Tiffany is somebody that I game with pretty often on my gaming channel. I might actually do Kingdoms of Amalur Re-Reckoning later today. I might do it on this channel if that's okay. Just to kind of like show people what I do when I do my gaming channel. I don't know. We'll think about that. Dango Bango says, in no way is it acceptable to shoot anyone 24 times. Our police are not only made up of legalized domestic terrorists, but also right-wing gang members. But yeah, we're going to get to that. And Sarchik says, putting my money where my mouth is. Thanks, Jeff. Well, thank you, Sarge. I do really appreciate that. I appreciate all the donations. They, unlike Twitch and like gaming streams, younger people call them donos. I didn't know that. That's really interesting. And so, the things that you pick up online, that's how I know I'm fucking ancient now. That I learn like new things, like new internet stuff all the time. It's crazy. All right, anyway. Moving on, let's go to police crashing a funeral. All right. Police officers in Ohio decided to crash a black man's funeral, declaring it a riot. So now, again, this happened to the family of Tamika Cheers, whose 23-year-old son actually died in a car crash after a high-speed chase with Ohio State troopers. And so the funeral for Charles Pierce Luis was held on Tuesday with over 100 family members in attendance. According to Cheers, things were going fairly well. I mean, it's a funeral, so it's not going to get like raucous. They were fine. Everything was going fine. The funeral was proceeding as scheduled until police showed up. And when they did show up, they showed up in force. They pulled out guns, tasers, and even unleashed police dogs. They then arrested 5 family members for quote unquote rioting. What the hell, Ohio? What is going on here? So cops show up, pull guns, people obviously get agitated because it's a funeral, they get mad, and they start, of course, feuding with cops. And then were arrested for resisting arrest, and then the police say, well, we had to do it. It was a riot. It was a riot. Now, according to the Lorain police, funeral attendees were mostly cooperative, except for a small group of people. These people, again, apparently resisting arrest because the cops just pulled up and, I mean, okay, this is complete insanity, right? What were you even there for? It's a funeral. It's a funeral. I know. Whenever there's a large gathering of black people, apparently it must be a riot. They must be very, very dangerous. No, give me a break. What is going on here? I mean, no, this is according to a neighbor speaking to 5 News. This is somebody who, was a witness, right? After the police arrived with guns drawn, tasers and police dogs, all that stuff, family members and people from the neighborhood were trying to calm the situation down, right? To make sure nobody got shot, nobody did any violence, anything like that. Now, other people not related to the funeral apparently were starting to feuds. There were some fights in the streets with cops. There were people arguing. And again, none of that happened until the cops showed up. So if it's a peaceful situation before the police arrive, and it becomes an unpeaceful situation after the cops do arrive, then who do you think's to blame for the situation getting out of control? Well, I would blame the cops. And look, understand, this is what happens at BLM protests as well, right? 93% of the BLM protests, and they've been going on for months, have been peaceful. This is according to studies, right? 93%. And yet, that 7%, what we've seen in a lot of those cases, right-wing provocateurs, right? People infiltrating the protests, or police agitating, and that, of course, creates violence. And so then, after the cops agitate in some of those situations, and they come in and they attack peaceful protesters, the protesters fight back, and then police can, once again, move in with more force. And because, well, hey, it's a riot, we have to. We have no choice. We have no choice. And why would they do this? Because in a lot of cases, police are not on the side of the protesters. They're on the side of white supremacists, by and large. They're not on the side of the protests. And there's a reason, of course, white supremacists have infiltrated police departments. I mean, look, the original goal of the Ku Klux Klan was to infiltrate government agencies, including police, to prevent black people from exercising their fundamental rights. Now, those rights that they originally went after are the rights to vote. And, of course, institutionally, they're still going after those rights. But now, apparently, you don't even have the right to hold a funeral in Ohio anymore. I mean, it's insanity. Now, Cheers said, quote, "Just because you see a bunch of black children and family members and elders, don't mean it's a problem. We were just celebrating my son's journey through this life, a journey that is no longer happening." She also added, quote, "I don't hate police, but I don't care for them either, because they're supposed to protect and serve. Y'all didn't do that last night." Again, who did this protect and serve? Look, here's the thing. about this country, right? In America, we've got a fundamental misunderstanding of what police actually do, what their job is, right? I mean, yes, their job is to protect and serve, but not the people, not the powerless, right? Their purpose is to protect property, protect private property. And of course, they serve the powerful in order to do so. This is why, once you realize this, you begin to understand why police respond to things the way they do. Why police generally don't tend to go after people who are fairly powerful. Okay? Why? Because, and generally, it tends to be white people. If you go after somebody who's, generally a white person who's driving a nice car and all that, who might be doing like drugs or selling drugs, doing financial crimes or whatever, well, that person could be a judge's son. Or not even that case, right? You just look at, and I forget his name, like Ethan Couch, the affluenza kid. That was one example of that. But you also had the boy who, or I should say the man who raped a woman behind a dumpster. And for some reason, I forget his name. And, they were worried about his future, right? Well, I mean, I don't want to punish him too harshly, because what about his future? Well, you don't worry about a black kid's future. No, you, in that case, you usually lock that kid away, and you lock him up, you throw away the key. And that's what happens. And so they're not out there to protect regular people. They're not out there to protect, of course, people who are powerless. And understand that's also why there's a huge backlog of rape cases, rape kits that are unsolved, untested. It's also why they ally with white supremacist militias in places like Kenosha, Wisconsin. Allow people like Kyle Rittenhouse to go back to their home state after murdering 2 people and then arresting him later when there's outrage. Brock Turner, thank you. I was thinking of Ethan Couch, who is the affluenza kid. But at the same time, right, I'm not saying that cops should not protect property, right? I mean, that is part of their job. That is what they originally were created for. Now, they were created in the slave states to protect white people's property, which happened to be escaped slaves. So understand that is the racist origins of police. And I'm not saying that every police officer is a racist, but it is a racist system of protecting quote unquote property. And so for me, I think, wouldn't it be nice if we actually had a department or some sort of, governmental force created solely to protect people instead of property? Would be nice. We need to understand that what our cops really do and why there has to be a need for reform. Because there's a lot of fellow white people who don't quite get it, because for me, for example, I've never had really that bad of an interaction with a police officer. It has always been cordial. It has always been pleasant. But my experience differs greatly from that of the average black American, and that is what's wrong with the system. And that's why it needs to change. Okay. One more here. And this will infuriate you. Four police officers were fired on Thursday following an investigation into a fatal shooting in which officers had fired 24 rounds at an emotionally disturbed man. So now, the incident occurred on April 21st around 9 p.m. when several officers responded to a series of emergency calls about a man running through traffic on a highway. So this person, according to police officers, Nicholas Chavez, who's 27 years old, he was running through traffic and allegedly holding a metal object. So I don't know that for sure. Now, according to Police Chief Art Acevedo, during a press briefing, said that for around 15 minutes, police attempted to stop Chavez from, quote-unquote, harming himself, as police officers shot him with stun guns and beanbags. Wait. Okay, that doesn't make sense here. Okay. The officers shot him with 5 cartridges of stun guns and deployed 6 beanbags, all to get him to not harm himself. Hey, man, I really don't want you to harm yourself, so I'm going to harm you. That doesn't make any sense. What is wrong with this picture? I mean, you've got it. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. So now they justify this by saying, look, he had methamphetamine, amphetamines, and ethanol in the system, right? So, he was on drugs. So, okay, but does this mean that talking him down wasn't an option? Like, did you have to start pelting him with crap? And there's video, and I don't have it, but there is dash cam video. I'll put a link in the description of this video so you can check it out for yourself, right? But look, okay, let's be super, super fair, right? Was taking him down, talking him down an option? I don't know. Could he have harmed others? Possibly. Could he have harmed himself? Well, not more than the police harmed him. The police harmed him a lot more than he could have done to himself. And so, look, maybe he could put other people in danger. Maybe he could put the cops in danger. I don't know. But was there no better way? There's no better way. Because, look, I want to go back to people who, work in places where there are mentally disturbed people, right? They go into episodes, they have behaviors that involve physical violence, and sometimes it's really, really difficult to stop them, right? Well, those people don't get beanbag rounds to shoot. Those people, who deal with those people do not get stun guns, and they certainly do not get regular guns. And that's the other issue, right? Once the stun guns didn't work, then they switched over to using real guns. Remember, the whole thing was about, hey man, this guy could hurt himself, and so we're gonna try to help him out. It went from we're gonna do that to we got to shoot this guy 24 times. 24 times. So now first, they shot Chavez 3 times. That sent him down on the ground, right? He's down. He's not a threat anymore, okay? He's not a whatever perceived threat. It doesn't matter. He's down. Stop shooting him. But once he was down, they shot him an additional 21 times. They just unloaded on this guy. Unloaded. Now, going back to the police chief, right? So he did this press briefing yesterday, and he said, look, we did an investigation, and we only found that 3 of those shots were objectionably reasonable. So they say, look, the first 3, yeah. Because he was a danger to himself or possibly others. Well, again, you can't be more of a danger to yourself than being shot 3 times by police officers. That doesn't make any sense. But they found that the 21 were objectively unreasonable. So now, as a result, these are fired. These officers were fired. Benjamin LeBlanc, who discharged 2 of the 21 shots, Omar Tapia, who discharged 6, Patrick Rubio, who discharged 6, and Luis Alvarado, who discharged 7 shots. Now, he said of the the body cam footage, I believe that anyone who watches the tape and sees this will see that they had a lot of opportunities and a lot of other options readily available to them that we, as long as I'm police chief of the city, I will expect my officers to take. Let me be clear. It's objectively not reasonable to utilize deadly force when a man's already been shot multiple times, has been tased, has been on the ground, has shown that he really cannot get up. I cannot defend that. And you shouldn't, because it's utterly indefensible. Look, okay, even if he's a potential danger to others, I get it, right? You can't ignore that. There must be something you can do. That something should not include shooting him. I'm just saying, seems like overkill. Massive. Investigators agreed. right? In Old, the coroner reported that he suffered from 29 wounds, skip rounds and bullet fragments entering and exiting. So, well, I mean, if you wanted to stop him from hurting himself, great job. Mission accomplished. Mission accomplished. You got it. Look, there's got to be a better way, okay? Mental issues and people who are, intoxicated don't deserve to be shot dead. Okay, this is the problem, right? Nobody wants anyone to get hurt, right? Nobody wants innocent bystanders to be hurt. Nobody wants police to get hurt, right? But like, and maybe they felt like they had no choice. I don't know, right? The investigation says, well, at least the first shots are justified, and I don't know. But from what I've learned in class from a retired detective, right? So I took a police class. Once you fire your weapon, you discharge that weapon until it's empty, until the threat is neutralized, right? Even when that person's on the ground. Their training dictates that if they're alive, they're a threat. Discharge your weapon. That's why police training is not like equipped to handle people that are on drugs or the mentally ill. Okay? All right? This is why I say, like, we got to defund. We've got to put money into mental health care. We've got to put money into drug treatment programs. Understand that police are not designed to handle this. They were created to protect property. That's it. I mean, even going back to when they were created in the southern slave states, they were there to protect property, white people's property, which happened to be, in a lot of cases, black people. And so that was their origin. You have to understand the origin of police in order to realize why we want to fix that. Okay? And since they were only created to protect property, they were not created with human beings in mind. Okay? And now, for some reason, the majority of Americans are like, oh no, we should let police handle all these things. Mental health emergencies, call the cops. There are people out there who believe that the cops are going to help you with mental health emergencies. And what happens a lot of the time? That that person having a mental breakdown, or somebody who was autistic, for example, having a meltdown, they end up getting shot and killed. They should not be handling these things. Police should only be protecting property. That's it. That's it. Because that's the only thing that they're trained to do. They should not be handling people. They should not be dealing with people. And they should not be militarized. No, what we need to do is demilitarize them, take that additional funding away, right? And scale down what they're supposed to do. You want to have police out there protecting buildings and property, that's fine, right? That's what their job is. That's what they're supposed to do. But when you deal with people suffering from mental issues or drug addiction, that needs to be handled by someone else. That's why we say defund the cops, right? And actually put them, put people who are more trained to handle those situations into handling those situations. Let the cops go back to doing the one thing that they're good at. And use the rest of those resources to actually help humanity so that this kind of stuff does not happen again. All right. See, the reason the cops are handling all this is because capitalism creates suffering and takes money for themselves and uses the state to keep the money flowing. Look, capitalism is definitely, a big reason why there is the way that we do things here in this country creates the conditions for poverty and crime. And we can actually fix that until we actually fix that part of it. Let's see. All right. Anyway, that's it. Thank you guys. Sell Anthony Celestin. Yes, Brock Turner is the name. Yeah, for some reason, I could not remember his name at the time. Sometimes that happens. I get like a brain fart, but anyway, thank you for that. Thank you for watching. Thank you for the super chats, of course, and the support. Please like and share the stream, like and share the videos. Very helpful if you do so. And have a great weekend. We'll see you back here next week. Stay safe, as always, and, you know, keep fighting. Keep fighting the good fight. Love you guys, and remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. We'll see you guys later.
See you some nights.
Please clap.
Mike Pounds.
Colorado.
Wait, you're getting nervous, man.
They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.